Norman, a life in painting.
Yes.
When did you first start to paint?
I had the misfortune to come across two very strong and long delays. The war, which started when I was 12, and then there was the army. I had to go in the army, which I didn't really do anything really seriously apart from all kids do sketches and so forth, pencil sketches. And I've always wanted to do something like that, I always did. And my mother put me on the piano when I was 7, so I combined the two. I had music and I had art. And so when the Battle of Britain was over and they started bombing the cities, in London particularly, my father's work was he worked in the docks as a foreman. And he came in one day and he said, we're going to have to move up to Scotland there because the ships were coming up the Clyde, they weren't coming round the coast. And so I said my goodbyes to my friends, and on 1st January we was in Scotland, 1941. I had to go to school again, and I tried to talk my father out of it, and I said, do I have to go to school, Dad? So he said, of course you've got another year to do. So I said, well, I think I'd do better if I didn't. So he said, why is that? I said, because I've noticed that down by the quay, they're advertising for a boy on their pilot boats, and I'd like to try. So he said, well, okay, because he was a sailor during the First World War, and my mother's two brothers were sailors. They went down with the Battle of Jutland with their battleship. So we come from a naval family, really. So I'm really looking forward to this, and I walked into the office and they offered me the job. It was 4 days outside the boom defence for taking pilots off when they left the river and putting pilots on when they were entering the river. And this was a very wide expanse. The Firth of Clyde is enormous. So we were right planted in the middle, waiting for the ships to come in. And there was a millionaire's yacht they commandeered, which was on a sea anchor, and the pilots could rest there, and they could have their shower or whatever. And we used to operate between logs, which is outside the boom defence, and to where this yacht was. And I suppose it must have been about 2.5 to 3 years working on the boats. I've been through a storm and everything. Been aboard the Queen Mary when she came up the river. She anchored off. We found her in the fog, and my father had an accident, and he couldn't work anymore. So we decided we'd come back to England. 1943. I went into the front room and had a look at my piano and lifted the piano stool, and there was my music and some of the pencil drawings I'd done. So I picked up the pieces from there and went and took piano lessons again and continued with sketches and so forth. Couldn't afford oils or anything like that, but it was just more or less what I'd learnt at school with poster paints and so forth. I used to do the school posters and things. And when I got called up to go in the army, I went into the Irish Guards and finished my 3 years when the war was over. And I continued with the piano and managed to start up with a band and so forth all around here. And I didn't look back after that. It was just marching on, enjoying the piano playing, and got to a stage where I was good enough to play some of the hotels in London and so forth. I played at the Savoy, Cafe Royal, Dorchester. It was really going up beautifully. And one of the girls who was friendly with our guitarist told me that because she looked in my drawing, she said, you ought to take this further because you ought to get into oils, and that's when I started to paint in oils. And that was about 1960. And I've been in oils ever since. I took a course for teaching and lecturing in art, and after a couple of years I've got my certificates, and I'm now a 4th grade lecturer, and I've taught in Ireland, summer holidays, which is good fun, you know, and met lots of people, still corresponding with them. And one day I decided to try my luck in Amsterdam. There was a bus that used to leave the village pub, the George and Dragon, and just jumped on it. I said, join, see you in a couple of days. I had no idea what I was going to do. When I got to Amsterdam, it wasn't in the spring, it was in February, and it was to see the making of cheese. So I didn't want anything to do with that, but I was there for a purpose. And the first thing I did was to look for the galleries. And I walked into the first one, and it was a cul-de-sac, large square, and I looked at the sign and it said, Rembrandt couldn't stand up. It must have been very, very old, because it was being propped up on these huge supports. So I went down these steps, and I walked in, bell rang, a little man came up and said, can I help you? And I said, I'm here to see if you're interested in my paintings. So he said, oh no, you have to make appointments for this. Sorry, you can't do this, just can't walk in, you know. So I thought, oh, so I was just about to turn away. So I said, just you're English? So I said, yeah. You've come a long way. I said, yes, I have. Oh, well, we'll have a look. So I said, okay. So I had these slides, you know, these box of slides, all my work. And he started to look through them, and I was putting them back in the case, and I eventually decided he hadn't said a word, and I thought, oh dear. And so I just turned around ready to go. So he said, where are you going? So I said, I didn't think you was interested. He said, could you do me 20 canvases, please? I was over the moon. I could not believe anyone would be that interested in me, you know. So he said, Amsterdam. I don't know windmills or anything like that. Just walk around. Got a camera? So I said, yes. He said, sketch pad? So I said, yeah, I've got all that, yeah. So I said, but I can't speak the language. I said, oh, he said, everyone speaks English, don't they? He said, particularly bridges and so forth. See what you can find. So it was a very cold day, and I was looking at some of these places, you know, where I thought, where would I get the angle of light and everything? You know what it's like. You just can't snap. And I found one particular church, and it gave me a chance to do something with angles of light and everything. And it was one of these cantilevered bridges, all painted black, and that was lying completely. It was with the background of the old houses going right down the canal, and they were in sunlight, and there was this beautiful bridge silhouetted against all that, and I thought, that's it. Anyway, after about 2 years, and I've been doing quite a lot of work with them, I wasn't too pricey, and he said, remember this, I've got to sell them. But I never knew where they were going, because no one tells you where they're going, because they're their customer. So he did ring me up one day, and he said, the one you didn't want to paint for me, no, the one I didn't want you to paint for me was anything but Amsterdam. So I said, you sent me this painting of bears catching salmon. So I said, yes. So he said, I thought, well, I'll have it back. He said, no, he's sort of got a buyer. He said, but he wants to know where it is, or where it's from. So I said, who is he? So he said, he's a Canadian. Well, I'd invented this. So I said, it's Canada. So he said, oh good, this is what's happening all the time. So eventually I got the bad news where they couldn't save the place. It was going to fall in the canal, you know. And he said, it's been in the family for years. He said, it's over 450 years old, this place. And it's always been a gallery. I was very sorry to leave. Mr. Boulding was his name. And he said, if you like, he said, I'm opening up a gallery, he said, in somewhere in the country a place called Halo. So I said, no, I don't think that's going to be good enough. I've got to be in a big city. I can't expect to sell paintings in the countryside. So we said goodbye. and that's on my association with them, but it did open a few doors in London for me. I had many requests to join this and join that, but the one I did get interested in was the Botanical Society, which was just being formed, and asked if I was interested. And I said yeah, so we met at the Mall, and in one of those back rooms, and there was only about 8 of us, and this lady said, well look, she said, if we get this off the ground, it's the only one, it's going to be the only one in the world. There's no such thing as a Society of Botanical Artists. So let's start one. So I said, yeah, but I said, if you're looking at me, I've got no money, I don't, you know. Oh no, she said, I'm putting up the money. And she put up £30,000. But she had all the connections. She had the president of the Royal Academy. She had, and we're speaking to her with the Queen Mother, so it was all there. So I thought, well, I can't go far wrong here. And then I did speak to her and I said, I'm not really a botanical artist. She said, no, she said, you're an impressionist if I ever saw one. She said, but you can paint a garden. She said, we need the contrast, we need you. So I said, oh, okay. 1984, and I only retired from them not more than about a year ago because I got a very serious illness and I couldn't do the travelling, I couldn't do this and couldn't do that. I'm still under medication for it now. So I had to tell them that I've got to pack it in, you know. They said, no, we're not going to lose you, we'll make you an honorary member. So I said, oh, well, that's wonderful, thank you very much. So I can always put one in if I want to. And that's at the Westminster. But there was a lot of requests that keep coming in all the time. And I've never refused anything like with the charity side. I mean, it's been for children, Brittlebone and all this sort of thing. I've always said, yes, help yourself.
One question, the final question is, all the paintings that you ever created, hypothetical situation, are in one house and the house is on fire and you have to save one of those paintings or get somebody to save one of the paintings. Just one.
Just one.
Which one would it be?
Painting of an old lady, which is my mother, being greeted by her daughter-in-law at a station. And it's the two that have come very close together. Almost their glasses are almost touching. You can just see the smile beginning to form on my mother's side, on this left side. And it's this huge lady looking down straight at her. And you almost know what they're saying. Did you have a lovely journey? You're going to stay with us the extra few days. We're all looking forward to seeing you again. It's all there. People at the back moving along. It's all in that small area, that side. So it's over there if you want to look at it.
Brilliant, Norman, thank you very much.
Yeah, I've got something.